I'm going to call our Thursday, November 9th, 2023 Airport Advisory Board meeting to order. Kayla, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Chairperson Harrison Earl.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Malcolm Dean. Here. Board Member Thomas Salamatian. Here. Board Member Steve Sheff. Here. Board Member Reiner Gotts. Here. Airport Manager Levi Brown.
Here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's about time. It's nice to see everybody. First item on the agenda, as always, is our public invited to be heard. I have one person signed up, but I believe it's for an item later on. So whoever would like to come up and speak now is more than welcome to. There is still a final public invited to be heard at the end as well. Melinda, you know the deal, but if you can start with your name and address, I'll start a timer for 5 minutes, and Levi can turn on your microphone.
Oh, absolutely.
There we go. Good afternoon. Good evening. Melinda Jordan, 1110 Twin Peaks Circle, Longmont. I think that's all I had to do. It's been a while. I want to talk to you about the air show. We just had a really good call today with the Innovation Center of St. Vrain Valley School District. And they're all in and pulling together their resources and working on whether they can bring in the RV-12 that the kids have been building and have it as part of the display. We're talking manned and unmanned flight for that. The best news I've gotten in the last couple weeks was that the Colorado Springs Air Show, which was put to rest and then resurrected, is going to be August 17th and 18th next year. And that is a show to go to. It's so good. And they're going to have the Blue Angels in 2024. So August 17th, 18th, Colorado Springs to see the Blue Angels, not competing with us. That was the best part. Wings Over the Rockies, Exploration of Flight, we're on their schedule for them to come. So then I would, looking to partner at the maintenance hangar space that we've usually done kid space. I'd like to bring that up a notch and have that be, an education zone, a future of aviation zone, all the education aspects, St. Vrain, Wings Over the Rockies, all that future stuff happening there from a kind of an age standpoint. And then the Innovation Center is going to send 8 to 10 people and some mentors that will be manning their booths. So really good presence. And I'm going to move over to one-on-ones for the meetings with the volunteer crew through the holidays to stay on track with items that are open, but avoid in-person meetings because I looked at the calendar and couldn't even figure out when to try to reserve the library for the next one. So we would go to in-person meetings again in January. Hopefully we can partner with Levi and do it at the office. And then the last thing I was going to bring up was that I got they had the Metro Airport community meeting in the town of Superior 2 weeks ago. Did you get to go to that, Levi? Yes. Okay, so hopefully he'll have a report on that. Colin also went to that from the Innovation Center, and they were focused on noise and touch and goes. And somebody from California who helped some airport right under the LAX airspace, they banned touch and goes at the airport, and so that's now seems to be maybe a little bit of the focus is the touch and go activity. But in the meantime, today I got an email from AOPA asking for a liaison to the Boulder Airport, AOPA member to liaise with the Boulder Airport and as a part of all this effort. So I did share that with Colin as well. I'm trying not to sign up for more things, but it's an interesting one, so I wanted to let you guys know. So it would be the ambassador to BDU, right, BDU, and I asked them in response who is their ambassador or who are their ambassadors for Longmont. And we'll see if I get a reply on that to know who represents us here with AOPA. But if we don't have somebody, then we'll step in. And it may be we don't because we haven't been battling problems lately. But we have and we will. So that was interesting. So I'll keep an eye on that. And then, like I said, I'm going to pivot over to one-on-ones for the air show. And we're still drawing in additional new help and volunteers and sponsors and interest. So it's looking good. We're underway. But I think it's the holidays just present so many challenges on the weekends that I'm not going to try to do in-person meetings until January, and then we'll ramp it up. think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Melinda. Does anyone else wish to speak at this point? And I do want to double check. I have Bob Liner signed up for 7A, and I will call you at 7A. Correct? Good? Okay. Seeing nobody else, going once, going twice, we'll move on to approval of August and September minutes. Board members, anyone have any revisions, changes, comments on the minutes? Then I will add mine for the September minutes. It does not list me as being absent as well. Otherwise, no changes. Anyone else? I'd entertain a motion for approval then.
Motion to approve minutes.
I'll approve the minutes.
Motion, second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Levi, updates from the airport manager.
All right. So I've been kind of going back through these old minutes because I kind of trying to figure out where we left off last time. It's been such a while. But I think I got a pretty good list of kind of what we can talk about. Last one we were talking about starting improvements to the airport perimeter road. Those have pretty much all been completed now. We repaved along the north side of it, across all the taxiways in an effort to reduce FOD and stuff like that. There's a few little spots left that they missed that we're going to pick up, but apart from that, that's all done. And there's one patch kind of on the northwest side that we've determined that is city responsibility, that if we pave will greatly reduce FOD, so we're going to do that too. Let's see. Airport drainage issue lately. I've been working with the city's engineers. They did a tour of the airport. Not the airport engineers, the city engineers. We did a tour of the airport, and they found some things that weren't draining like they thought they were. So next Monday, we're doing another quick meeting to talk about what their potential requirements for the south side of the airport might be moving forward. Kind of what I think is going to come out of that. They're going to come out and do another assessment on what they would require prior to construction on the south side of the airport, which will be good because anything that gives us clarity moving forward on eventually what would be needed to be done to be developed down there is very important. Being able to kind of put everything together and have a super clear picture of what's be required moving forward, of course, is going to happen before any kind of development happens. Let's see. Unfortunately, due to kind of, getting people together, we missed an airport advisory board meeting in between when the CIP meetings were going on with the FAA. That would have been nice to get in front of the board. Not a lot really changed, though. Moving forward for 2024, our big projects are going to be pavement rehab, and as a part of that is going to be a good look at the drainage on the ramp there that goes towards the east side of the airport. There's some issues with slow drainage on that end. And the completion of the wildlife fence project. Those are the next two big projects to come out of that. Also, what came out of that, apparently it's a little bit of pressure. The FAA, it seems, they really want us to start focusing on doing some additional planning at the airport. They mentioned that they couldn't think of a better use for our sitting there grant funds in a new airport master plan. So that seems to be a pressure point. So talking about that now with the city and stuff like that. So potentially preparing to do a master plan within the next few years, potentially. That kind of sparked up due to some of the planning that's been going around the airport. I know that the last meeting I briefly mentioned that the city was speaking with the FAA about some potential planning issues, specifically the modern west developments on the east end of the airport. I know that the Modern West 2 development has kind of gone back to the individuals that were supposed to be developing that to see if they can make accommodations for the FAA. To my understanding, the Modern West development is still moving forward. There were some meetings about that yesterday, but I haven't spoken directly with Harold or with the FAA about what came from those meetings. What else? And I did make it to the Superior meeting. So that was an interesting experience. It was a listening session, actually. It was kind of, if you can, did anyone else, I assume no one else here made it. It was kind of an open forum where essentially the Colorado Attorney General was there, a couple of local representatives and stuff like that, and they sat and they listened to complaints. And one of the things that I can attest to that came out of that, actually, this coming Monday, I had an appointment with Cooper Anderson, who is the airport manager over at Greeley. He was supposed to come over and do a tour of our airport. He canceled that because the Colorado Attorney General actually called him and asked to do a meeting with him. So he's going to go do that meeting. I said, it's kind of ironic that the guy that wasn't at the meeting he asked to do, and it just happens, I was giving him a hard time. I said, you should turn up the meeting so you can know what he was going to ask you about that meeting. But anyway, so the Colorado Attorney General is, he's at least checking off those political check boxes of going, through the motions, and they're talking to people, professionals in the industry about primarily noise. One of the main reasons I went to that meeting was to kind of get a feel for what the complaints were. So I took a tally on where people were from. I took a tally on what their specific complaints would be. There were ones that seemed rather outrageous, and I excluded those. Your noise is literally driving me crazy. I'm yada yada yada. But it was about I'd say about 2/3 the complaints were for noise, and about 1/3 the complaint was for lead. So as we get more into it in the EPA's final rulings, we're going to start hearing more and more about lead and stuff like that. It's just some insight. I could talk about noise all day. That's what I've done at airports my whole career. That's kind of the big updates that I kind of wrote down on my list. I'm trying to think if I've missed anything. We did get an airport truck finally. We purchased from the DIA sale. It cost us grand total out of pocket $4,000. The plow on it was worth more than that, so that makes me happy. It's in the shop right now. They put some new brakes and rotors on it. They're tracing down a wire fault in the light bar. It really came with a really nice light bar. How about an air band radio? So finally, yay, we've got an airport truck that I can throw shovels in and stuff like that, and we can actually use out there on the airfield. Let's see. Those are kind of the big items that we've had movement on lately. That's what I got. Are there any questions or anything?
Mr. Salamatine?
Yeah, so the drainage issue, is that because of grading, or is that because of there's pipes that are not working?
Specifically on the main ramp, you mean, when we talked about reassessing during the pavement? From what I can tell, when it was laid out and looking at the original plans and looking how it's laid out, if you guys can imagine the ramp, there's kind of a dip in the middle of the ramp, and it drains down the middle of it. And when we have super heavy rains, when it hits that east side of the ramp, it tends to not drain quickly enough, is kind of the way it seems. So, of course, I've had the engineers out there, and they just had a preliminary look at it. They haven't brought instruments out to check grading and stuff like that yet. But it seemed important enough, just from what we were seeing, that we went ahead and we altered our CIP project a little bit for that pavement rehab to include pavement rehab and drainage improvements from the ramp, which in reality takes care of everything on the east end of the airport.
Vice Chair Dean?
A quick question. So is the truck going to be a long-term thing? Is it pretty new, or kind of age or wear and tear?
It's a 2014, so yeah, it's pretty new. So if nothing else, it's a great stopgap measure. The airport actually ordered a truck last year. Unfortunately, Chevy Ford have been way back, particularly to give it probably a little bit too much information, particularly for city contracts, because they get about half the profit they do for city vehicles than they do on civilian vehicles. So as long as there's a pressure for parts or a demand for trucks, we're always going to be on the bottom of the totem pole. So last I heard, we were at least a year out, and it probably more than that for getting a new truck. This truck was a used DIA truck. It's a yellow ops truck, they had a snow blade on it, pushing snow and stuff like that. It's in good shape, it's good enough shape that I drove it back here and it ran real good. So I'm super happy with it. Worst case scenario, we use it until the new truck comes here, and then we sell it for a profit, and then the money goes back to the airport. So it'd be great.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions from anyone? Mr. Shook?
Yeah. Back to the drainage, a couple of the tenants at the airport talked to me. Doug Lyle's been having problems. Is that drainage part of that project?
So anything that, if you can kind of visualize, now I wish I had well, had a little map here somewhere. Well, I do. I don't have anything to project it on, unfortunately. But if you can, I'm sure you can all visualize the airport, where the main ramp is, and then how it goes to the east. There's those hangars just to the east of the main ramp. So pretty much everything drains around there, off the main ramp in front of the windsock, and then goes to that drainage pond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
Tom
that area.
Book's hangers there, he was saying something. And then I know Doug Lyle's been complaining about drainage.
Yeah, that was one of the first problems on the airport that actually came to me. So that came last year. We did a preliminary assessment on most of it. They did a little bit of clean out to make things run as best as they could, and that kind of went on the radar. So as soon as we had engineers on board, right when Garber hit, we went out, we walked that, and they put it on our project list for the
Okay.
CIP.
Good.
Yep.
Mr. Salamatine? Hold on. I'm trying to hit the button. There you go.
Do you have any updates on the tax reassessment for the hangars?
I've heard, so that's one of those things that unfortunately I'm kind of looped out of. So all the data I get is kind of when I go to people and say, hey, can you tell me about this? Can you tell me about that? What happened? And from what I can kind of gather, there's kind of been mixed results. I've talked to some people that just seem still very upset about it. I've talked to a couple of people say, hey, that's great. I fought it and they cut it way back. So I've heard both things come from that. I don't know if it's depended on the individual, how hard they pushed for it or fought it or what kind of came of it, but it's kind of less people are talking about it. I have a feeling that maybe most of the people that really fought it hard probably got pretty good concessions out of it.
Mr. Shook?
So I know a little bit, probably
you
more
know some
about
more?
it because I
Yeah.
own one of the hangars and I'm part of the hangar association. So we went through the appeal. We went through the first appeal and some people got it lowered, some people did not.
Okay.
And the best way I can describe it is if there's two hangars, same size, right next to each other, one might be $5,000, the other one's $1,500. So there's no rhyme or reason for how they're taxing people. And so we all just went through the second appeal process. And again, some people hangar went up in value and a few people went down. And I don't know if I can say her name, but Lisa Bryant, who was the assessor for the airport, retired now, had the problem and fought. And so now the next phase is going to the state Board of Equalization. And so that's everybody that I've talked to is going to go through that process. It's ridiculously priced.
You said that was the State Board of what?
Equalization. And I don't have my number from the appeal yet, but the first appeal, it went up.
Went up?
Oh, when I got my tax,
Okay.
it went up from 400 to 6,500. And then the appeal, without doing anything, it went down to 2,400. So, I mean, if you just take those two numbers, they don't know what they're doing. And they're just, there's no rhyme or reason. And in some cases, I have a larger hangar than most, and mine's cheaper than most. But yet, it's still, right now, 600 times what I paid last year. So, anyway, that's what I know.
Mr. Salamatine?
Oh, wow, that's very enlightening, and I'm very sorry That-
Yeah.
But I think it's a really important issue because if there is any sales or changing of hands of these properties, then I'm assuming that these taxes will stick with it. So it's important to get the equalization now, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I agree. It's not gonna get any better.
So Levi, if there's anything we can do, let us know because I do think this is an important issue that we should get.
Yeah, that's kind of we approached it too. Is there was enough outcry, we went to it. We even got Harold to do a meeting with Boulder County, and during that meeting, Boulder County essentially said, "This is our purview. You don't have any power."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got and of course in much more polite political terms, but essentially that was kind of the feeling that came out of that meeting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my recommendation. I know before is essentially to go. Unfortunately it's not a city issue; it's a county issue. So just hit it hard on the county. Yeah, it'd be a county. That would be the people to take it to for sure.
But when you have the retired assessor, licensed appraiser saying what they're doing is illegal,
Yeah,
then you know something's wrong.
that's I'm sure, and yeah, that's just. I'm not an expert. That seems like a card in your pocket. I
Yeah,
would certainly.
I would say
That might
so.
be that makes maybe she should see if she can get in front of the county commissioners and see.
Yeah.
Now, she used to work for him, right?
Mr. Gotts?
Hey, that's a terrible situation, but to change gears, I noticed something on the navigation easements, item 7, action items, Levi.
Oh,
Since we've been out for a while, just wanted to kind of refresh that and see, do we need anything from you? Do you need anything from us?
so actually on that one, I think what we determined, because that was right, the last meeting we were talking about navigation easements and what we wanted to action item. I kind of ran that through the chain of command here, and I think what we determined at the moment, we're going to kind of leave that to the planning department, and we want them to kind of to pick up the gear on the project first of making things move on that, and then if we need to do an official letter on it, move forward from there. But that's something else that's been a hot topic item, especially with the FAA being involved in planning issues around the city and stuff like that. So that's going to have to be high up there. I know that during one of the last meetings for the Modern West development, they actually said that the city did say that they would be requiring navigation easements for that. So
Now, is it, again, just to get it right, avigation versus navigation?
navigation.
Right, so
Navigation.
that 7L should be avigation easements.
7L. You know what line that was on?
I gotcha, yeah.
Got it.
It's easy to miss, it's kind of like spell check.
Yeah, it's all, and unfortunately, the computer dictionaries don't recognize the word navigation, so they autocorrect everything to navigation. So essentially, to fix that, you'd have to go to whatever computer you're using at the moment and teach it the word, or else, yeah.
Well, so in that same change, I know we've already approved the minutes, so slightly retroactively, we've got line 5, 6, and 9, I'll have that.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Dean?
And one more quick question. One more quick question. Last time they talked about you'd update us on the prairie dog mitigation. Is there any more
Oh.
information about the cost or anything going on with that?
Since the last time we met, been keeping an eye on that. I've been kind of lazy about it the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've been going out there at least 2 mornings every week and spending an hour or 2 out there just kind of observing. But recently, haven't been seeing too much. We did have a little bit of spike after the initial treatment. Since then, with spot treatments, things have kind of seemed to have been petering off. We're getting to winter. Black-tailed prairie dogs don't hibernate, actually. So I'm kind of excited for coming into winter because theoretically, when we get a nice warm day and all the greenery is down and flat out there, it should be a lot easier for me to get my binoculars out there and spot anything that's left. But what I've been doing is heading out there, seeing where, trying to visually spot where active holes are, flagging them, and then the public's crews work has been taking our little mitigation machine and going out there and spot treating. And so far, it seems to be acting pretty well. Of course, the true test will be this spring when, into early summer, when their little migrations start happening, and kind of see what potential little prairie dog explosion of population we get. But at the moment, the Public Works agrees, the city wildlife guys seem to agree that if it stays like this, that we can stay on top of this ourselves. Having said that, I've made it understood to the city, like, hey, this is a big FAA item. If I need to spend money on this, this is something that I feel comfortable spending money on, and we should probably just go ahead and do. And I think everyone kind of seems to be on the same page about that.
Perfect, thank you.
Only comment I was going to make on master plan that you brought up.
Uh-huh.
You said sometime in the next couple of years.
So
Any sense of when in the next?
So on how it's on the CIP right now is on the 2025. So during the ACIP meetings, the FAA essentially came back and they said there's no better, we think you should use your grant money for a master plan. They initially pushed to have that on 2024. We as a city pushed back a little bit, and the main kind of reasoning behind that being is we kind of already done all of our planning for 2024 as far as, allocating time and staff for doing projects and plans and stuff like that. So we said, hey, 2025 seems like something that would be a little more digestible. And the FAA kind of said, okay, that's understandable. There's been some internal discussions on whether the city is ready to do that or not. I'm, a proponent of doing it just for the mere fact that it seems that we're kind of out of options. I pushed pretty hard with them to kind of say, hey, can we just do an ALP update, an airport layout plan update? Would that be acceptable? I didn't get much back on that. I kind of ran across our engineers. I said, hey, is there any way we could do an ALP update first and then kind of roll that into a master plan? They kind of advised against that. They said, if you do that, you're going to have to spend $100,000 plus on an ALP update, and then you're going to have to turn around and do a master plan update, and you're not going to be essentially be able to use that ALP update you did in that new master plan. You're going to have to do a whole new one, so it's not saving you any money. It was kind of the way it was communicated to me. So that's kind of where we're hanging out right now. That's all kind of in discussion right now with the city on what's going to happen moving forward.
Okay. I'll do the obligatory disclaimer here. I work for an engineering consulting firm that we do master plans. They are spectacularly expensive,
Yes.
and the new requirements the FAA is putting on them have extended timelines and budgets at
Yeah.
the airports I see. Admittedly, I do commercial service ones, so different
And-
world, but it's different than the last time Longmont did one. It's going to be a lot more money and a lot more time.
Yeah, and I kind of pointed that out during the ACIP meetings, and they pretty much agreed. I said, we're probably going to have to increase that figure by at least $100,000, and everybody went like, yeah, that probably sounds a little closer to what reality would be. I've made a kind of an argument to the city. Whenever we wind up doing it now, but if we do it in 2025, whether it gets pushed out further, now is a great time to start thinking about what we're going to prepare to do that plan. So I know I've already updated the Airport Advisory Board. We started active tracking of all aircraft on the airport using ADSB technology. So I'm getting exact figures for takeoff, landings, operations, overnights, stuff like that. That'll be important. Of course, we're always tracking fuel cells. We need to figure out exactly what needs out of the airport, what drainage will need to be improved in the future on the south side of the airport potentially, what needs to be going into that plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now's the time, if we think about that, can make that master plan way easier when it actually gets to it.
Fair. I'll agree with all that, and I know this is way too premature,
Yeah.
but I've been learning the last couple of weeks about some of the FAA's runway length justification processes that they are
Oh.
changing.
Oh,
So I
really?
would strongly suggest that be considered in a master plan, that is something that's looked at pretty in detail.
That's interesting. I'd like to talk more about that in detail later for sure. Yeah.
And I'm not an engineer, so I don't actually understand it. But there are new tools they're rolling out next year that should make it easier to at least see if you have a case.
Okay, that's good to know. Anything they can do to make that a clear part of, how airports apply for things, that's great. Because right now it's not so clear of a process. Yeah.
It is not. Mr. Salamatine.
Forgive my ignorance, but I would love to know a little bit more about the preparation and the planning that goes along with producing a master plan. I'm assuming it's like a multi-year process in order to put something like that together.
It's a long process. It's a very involved process. And as we've established, it's an expensive process too. I've only kind of been, I've never really seen one personally from start to finish. I've been in the middle of them. I've been on the tail end. I've been on the beginning of master plans before in different airports I've been at, which kind of gives you an idea of kind of what's involved in them and stuff like that. It's not, the FAA has good guidance on how you should conduct a master plan. There's advisory circulars on it. So the first step is we're going to have to pick a planning company. We cannot use, the FAA wants you to split up your engineering request for proposals and your planning request for proposals, so we can't just go with one. Our engineers we just selected, much to the city's disappointment, because we went through that whole process, they said, well, we can just use this one. It's like, well, no, that's engineering, we gotta now do one for planning. So I have to put another request for proposal for planning, get that ball rolling. Once that's kind of that's completed, we got someone on board, then we can actually go and say, hey, we got someone on board to do all this planning. We need to start allocating grant monies to get this plan taken care of. We can use grant monies to take care of that. We are fortunate in the respect that we have lots of grant money that we can use for that. We are unfortunate in the respect that if we use it for that, we can't use it for other things, which of course is the nightmare. Having said that, we're on year 11 of a 10-year master plan, and at best case scenario, we're going to be on year 13, 14 when we get a new master plan. So at the end of the day, no matter what, we got our life out of our current master plan. So at least, they didn't get upset and make us do it right at, year 10 or something like that, and we're in the works of doing it.
So it sounds like it's something that you're outsourcing. Is there a lot of work that we would be doing in preparation?
There's going to be a lot of work, and most of that's going to fall on the airport manager, which is just kind of naturally the way it is. And that's why I kind of made the case earlier today in the meeting I had with my boss that, hey, if we start thinking about this stuff now, I mean, they're still in the, oh my gosh, we don't want to, do this, which is completely understandable phase. The work involved in it is crazy. But if we kind of at least kind of start resigning to ourselves the fact that sooner or later we're going to have to start do this and start gathering the data, start thinking about what we want that master plan to look like now, it's going to make things way easier when we actually get to having to do it. So to finish your question, go out for proposals, select someone, then we can start applying for those grants to get that rolling. Identifying the needs of the airport, tracking stuff, operations, changes in the community. There's going to be, of course, what sparked this whole thing was planning around the airport here. That's kind of why the FAA is pushing it so hard. So there's going to be a heavy focus on that, I'm sure, moving forward. Public engagements are going to be a big part of the airport master plan. There's always challenges involved with public engagement, but I kind of look forward to that. I think it's great to get it out there and have that discussion with the public. I mean, sooner rather than later is great. The more we do to get out there, the more we do to engage them is a good thing. At the end of that, the planning people are going to take all that information, all that public engagement, all that, put it together in a big, thick document and give it to us. Most airports just say, hey, great, thanks. The responsible thing to do is probably actually go through that document, work with them, make sure that it actually is something that's meeting our need moving forward. And then we got a new master plan. Then hopefully that's, 10 more years of a master plan we can have until we got to do another one, and the price is way more expensive at that time. But
while I
yeah,
may
so
be
it
the
goes.
least experienced on that topic, I would be willing to help you if you do need help.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just add in there is a master plan web page on the airport's website that does have the 2010 master plan, FAQs, a whole bunch of the materials. So if you want some bedtime reading, 214 pages.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah. I actually have a binder copy that someone left me, so I'm happy to loan to you.
And I have additional copies too, if anybody would like a physical copy of that.
Yeah, I've promised to keep
you
one
can-
with the board chair.
You
in
can find it
perpetuity.
in my little library there up in the office. So
All right. Any other questions from updates on the airport manager? I think we've beat that to death otherwise. Mr. Shook.
Any update on the FBO?
minimal updates on the FPO right now. Things are kind of moving out there. New lease was generated, lease was put back for comment, so we're kind of in the middle of that position. Yeah.
It's a good non-answer, Levi.
Yeah. Hey, that's where it's at.
Do we have any information items tonight?
I've got one that I'd kind of like to throw out there, even though it wasn't on here. One thing that's kind of come up recently, we've been doing really in-depth kind of reviews of, leasing, making sure we're on point with stuff like that. Some issues and errors were found. One thing that I kind of wanted to put out there is I potentially want to make a very minor language change to the leases moving forward, nothing retroactive. And I wanted to put it in front of the board to make sure, everybody's been alerted. Right now, current language of the boilerplate lease says leases will have a CPI increase on them on the anniversary of the lease. What I'd like to do moving forward is make them a CPI increase on the first of the year. This benefits everyone, in my opinion, so it pushes back any potential increase that a hangar owner would have by however long it is till the end of the year. So if your lease is up in April, instead of applying that increase then, you just said increase applied, next April. So it theoretically increases, or benefits hangar owners, and on top of that, it also makes accounting much easier. One of the big issues we found while we were doing the audit on all the hangars was all of the different CPIs in the past were causing a lot of confusion. It looks like from the research that we've been doing, David had been towards the end of his tenure trying to kind of block apply CPI anyway. Jeff Coleman was certainly, looks like he was block applying CPIs instead of doing it on it. And the recommendation of our advisors was to, you should do one CPI once a year to make all of this accounting way easier. So that's something that I'd like to propose, put out there to the airport board to give some comment back on.
And I just want to make clear up front, and I'll ask go to the questions, I promise. We've in the past approved the lease template. So this would come back to us as an action item in a future time to approve the lease template adjustments.
Yeah, so that's kind of the idea. I just wanted to kind of put that out there as an information item, and then maybe at a potential meeting we could get a recommendation from the board after you guys had a kind of idea to think about that.
Mr. Salamatine.
So I don't know whether the city is on accounting for a fiscal year or calendar year, but I know the state is on a fiscal year starting in July. So I'm not sure how that's going to impact your simplification of accounting, because it wouldn't, assuming you guys are on the same accounting system and schedule as the state.
We're not. Yeah. Yeah.
Other questions on this information item? We'll look forward to seeing it back.
All right, sounds good.
Did you have any other ones, Levi, or was that?
That's kind of the one pop-up thing I had for this meeting. Yeah, just an adjustment for improving accounting. That's it.
Okay. Action items, then, I know we've kind of hit this a little bit for the navigation easements. We do have someone who'd like to speak about that.
Okay.
So I'm going to open that up. Is there anything else that we need to say other than what was said before? That the current plan, it's sitting with the planning department right now.
Yeah,
Is that
it's
correct?
sitting with the planning department, and I know at last meeting we were kind of like, yeah, we should do an action item, and I kind of ran that through them, and they tossed it back and forth, said, yeah, that might be a good idea, but at the end of the day, they kind of came back and said, we really need to get, things moving first, and kind of see where it is, and then see if it's going to have to come. The city's as much as said that they're already going to require it. But we kind of need to get things rolling, I think, and then see if, the way it was put to me, then see if we need a letter to kind of push things forward quicker is kind of what it sounded like. It's the way it was explained to me, anyway.
Any questions from anyone on that before we? Mr. Shook.
Are there any navigation easements?
There have been navigation easements applied. So I guess the best way to describe it is, as times change and it's become more of a thing and more of an awareness for planning departments, they've kind of started to apply those around. The navigation easements that I've read and I've seen that are in place already, kind of around that side of the city and around the airport, are kind of one-off things. It seems like they had this business, so they wrote up a navigation easement real quick. Navigation easements is one of the very first topics I took off when I came onto this job. I went to city's attorney's offices. I said, hey, when we should talk about this. Fortunately for me, a month or so later than after that, BJC got in big trouble with some of their avigation easements, was perked up everybody's ears around here. So we got some pretty good avigation easements written up in draft form. I, City's Attorney's Office, wrote some up. We sent those back to some advisors, and they added to it. They, from what I can tell, and I've been through multiple meetings with the drafts we had, they're pretty good. Of course, anything before we would put into a final form, we would talk more in detail about and stuff like that. But they're pretty rock solid. A lot of the failures of the past were from local airports, I won't mention names, were kind of taken into consideration when those were written. And I've actually run those by some of those individuals that had struggles with their avigation easements, and they said that they kind of like that language in them too. So, yes, that's kind of where that's sitting at right now. We have them. The city has said that they will apply them. I mean, no matter what, to anything that's going up on that side of the city. And we really just need now to get to a point where it's established city procedure and code is where we need to get it. And then we don't have to worry about it.
That sounds very optimistic.
Yeah,
Yes,
of course.
Understood.
Always optimistic.
I'm not seeing other board comments on that, so Mr. Liner, you had said you'd like to speak about this. Come on up. And if you can,
Navigation easements at Bob Liner, 1233 Wagon Wheel Court, Berthoud, and we have a business at the airport.
Levi, can you turn on his microphone,
I'm
please?
sorry.
There we go.
Thank
I'm
you. Go
still
ahead.
Bob Liner from 1233 Wagon Wheel Court in Berthoud, but we have a business and have at the airport and have for some time and flown out of that airport since 79. Been in the area since 58. We've talked about, the city has talked about avigation easements for about 10 years and just kicked it around. And then I have two very strong feelings about the avigation easements. I am worried about the city coming up with their own without having it reviewed by somebody who has national experience, and that's the AOPA from coast to coast, including probably the most, California was probably the hardest for them to deal with. They at least should be invited to review your avigation easement and comment on it. They have the experience of seeing these go into litigation across the country. And I can't think of a better advocate for the city and for the airport to review them. The second thing is the avigation easements need a point of sale disclosure to make sure that the buyer acknowledges that there is a navigation easement. Those are two things that need to go together. It's, usually resisted strongly by realtors, but it is protection for the city. Would like to comment on the appraisals. So we went through the process, and there was a small reduction, but it's still a large increase. And we went through the video interview, and the video interview was the appraiser and a what would you call it? It was a referee or a arbitrator, yeah. So we went through, and there were serious deficiencies in the way they evaluated our property. They we have 17,000 acres, square feet of hangars, and they assumed that all of it was heated, for example, and there were other small discrepancies. And that was noted. The appraiser for the city was very defendant, but the adjuster there was listening to the different problems with the appraisals. We also, then we later got a, that goes to Boulder County. Well, Boulder County listened to the appraiser and blew off everything else. So that's the way it went. But we had seen a very level tax rate over 10 years, and then one balloon, and that got blown down in a review. And then this one was on the order of double or triple the tax amount. Other than that, nothing important, very important, except around the mailboxes, a little more concrete so we're not ruining our rim, or make it easier to clean off and easier to get in close and get your mail. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leiter. Levi, we can't have the back and forth with a member of the public, but I'm going to ask you, since we're still talking navigation easements. You said that there were review, certainly by city attorney, and I think the words you used were outside advisors.
Yeah, our Eric, and the name of the consultant firm escapes me at the moment, I apologize, but Eric from, they're actually based back in Washington DC area, and they're an aeronautical legal advising firm is what they do. And they've been through this process many, 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 many times. So they kind of took what we had, reviewed it, and added, 8 or 9 pages of their own stuff to them. Yeah.
I support the idea of an AOPA review.
Yeah.
Particularly since it comes back to us, so.
Yeah. I mean, we can always.
It is going to be public
Yeah.
record, and,
We can always shoot it off to Brad, and he can review it too at the OPA. So,
Yeah. I would support more eyes better
Yeah.
on that. Does anyone else have any navigation easement comments? Since we're not taking action on that tonight, but I think it's a good discussion. Mr. Salamatine?
How large is the navigation easement for the airport?
I want to say, oh my gosh, it's a little document. It's like a little contract. It's multiple pages. I had to go back. It's been now 4 months or so since I've been through it. It's just kind of been sitting on there waiting for the planning department to take action on it. But it's hefty. I mean, just as an example, one of the lines that sticks in my mind was it says any current airplane, producing noise and or any airplane that's invented in the future, yada, 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 yada. It goes pretty deep into any potential, creation of any aircraft or whatever. So they really covered their bases on it. I remember when they shot it back to us, I said, this is pretty impressive. It's obviously from the standpoint of someone's had to deal with this before.
I thought it was a geographic area. Is it a geographic area around the airport?
So navigation easement is not a geographic area. The concept of an easement, I guess you can say, much like a road or something like that, is an item. But a navigation easement, I mean, the city decides where they want that navigation easement. The city might come back and say, you know what, we want a navigation easement over anyone who builds anything in the city. And they can absolutely do that. They can say, well, we want a navigation easement on anyone who is within 1 mile of the airport, or anything like that. So it's kind of at the city's discretion on where they apply those navigation easements. From a practical standpoint, and certainly from an FAA standpoint, they have a very specific set of qualifications where they do and do not want housing particularly, and then let's say more correctly perhaps incompatible land use, or they don't want things, particularly in the approach zones, and then within the airport traffic pattern, usually the things they really focus on. So that's really what they're concerned about. But yeah, easements are always great, and I tell people all the time, and some people come to me and say, well, it's great, we'll have an easement, we'll never have any issues again. It's like, no, it's not that we'll never have any issues again. It's just a tool in your toolbox, is all it is. It's just having the ability to say, is like, look, when you purchase this or when you develop this, we let you know, hey, there's an airport here. It's been here since 1940. Planes come by. Sometimes those planes are noisy. I don't think we can. Yeah, but Okay, any other questions?
Well, no other questions on that. Our next one is public invited to be heard.
There you go.
So anyone is welcome to come up and speak. Otherwise, we can have a discussion, after the meeting where we can actually have a discussion as opposed to just speaking at us.
No.
Bob Liner again, and just a question. Jan?
Yeah.
Yeah, the question is, we have an aviation, airport influence area definition, like we had at Boulder and many airports. And that's the thing that maps kind of where you want to have the aviation easements.
So, Mr. Leiter, I apologize that we can't answer the question by our rules of procedure.
Okay.
But I would encourage board members to answer it in our next item where we can.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And I apologize because it's kind of
Yeah.
awkward.
well,
But I appreciate the question.
Yeah.
Melinda.
Melinda Jordan, 1110 Twin Peaks Circle, in the flight path. I love living in the flight path, and through Nextdoor, learned that a lot of people that live over on Airport Road do appreciate the skydiving and the activity, and they don't resent it, but then you've got all the people who do. So the thing that, from the time I joined the board in 2016, January 2016, and it was being discussed then, and what I'm concerned is to hear, let's get things rolling first. They've been rolling since 1945, when they moved the airport out there, and they've been rolling closer and closer and closer to the airport, and at what point is it enough to preserve the airport influence zone, that area, and that what we consider an easement, logically what our brains go to is that space that's preserved. I was just looking up, the town of Superior has a population of 13,000 people. Most of them lost their homes and then rebuilt them right there in the same space. So if the noise was driving them crazy, why didn't they take that opportunity to move? And Broomfield has 74,000 people, so combined total of about 100,000, which is about what we are. Their metro airport opened in 1960. They started the town of Broomfield in 1961, and they built all of Broomfield right up to below the runways, so planes could crash into their neighborhoods. So don't know quite how they came up with the logic to do that, but just this last year, we had a plane crash right in the neighborhood there. And so to get things rolling first, it feels like they've been rolling for quite a long time. And the original request was just signage on Airport Road, Nelson Road, the adjacent Rogers, Boston, saying you're entering an airport influence, airport influence zone, low-flying aircraft, just some warnings that people, if they're looking at real estate and it's a cloudy day and there's no air traffic, they might see those signs and be triggered to ask some questions if that's a pet peeve of theirs. It seems like people move in and then it becomes a pet peeve. And so, that's just human nature. But the question being that the aviation easement seems to have needed to have been a priority for a long time, and maybe we are in good shape on complaints. I think we've gone from a really bad position to a good position, but we'd like to stay in that good position, and having this development built right into the crash zone is problematic, obviously. We will see a plane go down in that neighborhood, out of fuel, engine failure, something's going to happen. It has happened, planes have landed there, so we can figure that it's going to happen. So that seems to be an item that needs to be prioritized, in that if the board needs to write a letter, or if some action needs to be taken to move that up on the priority. And then I was just going to ask about snow removal plan, how that looks for this year, just out of curiosity. And then I noticed the fence was damaged, must have been by a car accident on Airport Road, and just when that gets fixed, and has that been problematic, or is it, it's definitely noticeable on Airport Road, but I haven't seen anybody breaching it. I do see you out there super early in the morning in that truck, though. Go, I do see you when I'm heading to work, so good job. I know you're out there working. So I think we're in good shape, considering like what they're dealing with down at Metro, and this listening session that they had, we're in better shape because we've already fought that battle. But really, to protect ourselves from future battles, these are a few pieces of tools we can put in the toolbox to protect ourselves going forward from having homes with children and swimming pools and things just right right as we take off. So whatever we can do to prioritize that would be good. Good job.
Thank you, Melinda. Would anyone else like to speak at our final public invited to be heard? Seeing no one, we'll close that and we'll move on to board, city council, and or staff comments. I will just answer the question. There is an airport influence zone. Google Longmont planning zoning map, and it is very visible, and it's a huge area of the city.
And
It's
I would add
fascinating.
to that, so there's a big, nice line around it. Also, when we were all kind of hashing this out and talking about, particularly with the planning that's been going on in that airport and why the FAA seemed to have such an issue with it, I sent out one of the advisory circulars to the planning department. They made me a very nice map of kind of the explanation of what the FAA says they're looking for, the angles off of the approach, the distance from the runway and point-like stuff. And they made an additional map with many different layers to it, approach layers, pattern layers, exterior layers. And so that's been generated now also in the last, I would say, is about 2 or 3 months ago. It's been generated for our use moving forward also. I'd also like to take a moment just to kind of make sure, we're separating the concept out between planning around the airport and then easements. So just because we get an easement pass, that doesn't mean we're doing appropriate planning around the airport to make sure we're having compatible land use. Easements apply to essentially everything. So like I mentioned, we could have an easement, anyone who develops in the whole city has to have a navigation easement. Planning will really have to, in my opinion, we should focus on around the airport, just to make sure that as we move forward to be successful as an airport, that we're not doing inappropriate things with that land. I think one of the big issues was a few years back. In fact, when we did the last master plan, if you guys do need a little light reading and go through that, when that master plan was done, all of the airport, all of the land in the airport influence zone was zoned as light commercial. A few years back, the city of Longmont changed that all to mixed use, and mixed use means housing. So I think that was one of the things when that really kind of perked the FAA's ears up when that all kind of came out, and why, again, they're pushing for a master plan so we can focus on the planning, not only at the airport, but beyond the fence. Oh, and by the way, the fence. The fence itself, yeah, there was a car incident. The big hang up with that was getting parts. We had to order parts and wait for them because it was that fence on the front of the airport, and it's just not chain link. It's that fancy black steel bar stuff. So we had the parts ordered. They fixed that, I want to say, at the beginning of last week or a little bit before, so it should be all good now.
Vice Chair Dean.
Yeah, for Levi, a couple of things. First off, I do have a B2 requisition number from Whitman Air Force Base for the flyover.
Okay, good.
It's not guaranteed, but we are in the system. So it's either that or a flyover of different aircraft. So I will be following up probably next month to see kind of where they're at with that. Because I haven't heard anything back, but we did get a number, which means we're on their radar for needing, a flyover. Secondly, if you can kind of get a hold of RTD, we're expecting a large turnout this year, and kind of plan the parking. And maybe you can get a hold of RTD and start kind of getting that going with, we're thinking overflow would be at the fairgrounds.
Okay.
And maybe shuttling back and forth from the fairgrounds to the airport. So if you could maybe get a hold of RTD and.
We can certainly reach out to them and kind of ask them what they can help us with. I'm sure if we go to, to the city planning guys and say, hey, can you help us with parking? They're going to say, hey, great, give us a plan, and then we'll give you some comments on it. So that will be kind of our responsibility, I'm sure, is organizing what the parking will be. And kind of on that same thought process, I did forget, I had it in my update and I forgot to mention, I did reach out to the FAA about making sure we're getting potential paperwork in. They said that, yeah, you need at least a 4 months for what they think that we need to submit. We need at least a 4 months heads up. So it appears on the, the far end of that. So we're getting stuff moving forward. I talked to the ADO. They also sent some communications back and forth between the FSDO. It's looking like there's not a whole lot of intricate paperwork we're going to have to do because we're not a Part 139 airport and we don't have to worry about security issues and stuff like that. They still are going to ask for kind of like a ground layout plan and a general air show plan, it kind of sounds like.
Perfect, awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Other board member comments? Other city staff comments? All right, I'm not seeing anybody. Cool. Then I will say that our meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for oh, I'm so sorry. Comment. I'm really sorry. Next meeting's December 14th. It is coming up to the holidays. If anyone knows plans in advance that you're not going to be there, let us know as far as you can so we can either say we're doing it or not. That's it. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.